Hello.
Okay.
So, Mayor, before you jumped on, Scott requested to move Ricky's stuff up front because he's actually out at Chinook Park and it looks like a vehicle. So we'll get him going and get him out of here so he can go back to work. So he's on the line. We're going to talk about a cross connection control specialist. It's a mouthful. New position. To potentially put in our mid-biennium budget modification for a start date of, I assume, January of 2024. So with that, I'll turn it over to Scott and Ricky.
Yeah, and Ricky, I'll just go really briefly before I turn it over to you. Obviously, we've all seen what's happened with regards to the water and the issues that have been raised at the city regarding our cross-control connection program. We had Regina Grimm, who came in and gave an oversight and said, kind of gave an overview of the big picture situation with our water and said our water is safe and it's we're fine, with the exception of she would highly recommend we would institute a cross-control connection program specialist. The cities our size typically will try to hire one if they can, and based on the number of hotels and swimming pools and sprinkler systems that exist in Ocean Shores, it's obviously it's almost a completely full-time job. That's the recommendation from the Department of Health, and we're kind of here to push forward on that. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Ricky.
Yeah, so we had Matt and I guess a little bit of it had been back and forth with Scott, talking about, the benefits of either doing a software and paying for that, or having a new employee here with us for the water department. And we had kind of decided that, an employee would be a lot more beneficial because they could maintain the cross connection control program. It's something that's always changing. It's never really done. It's something that's updated, at least every 6 months. So with that on top of, an extra body at the water department that can help with, flushing our dead ends, or, so that extra flushing, not full scale citywide, but that on top of, water quality monitoring. So, they would be responsible for installing a program that, and I talked to Kristen about adding a job description. Did she get that to you, Scott?
I still do not have one. It was recommended we take one from the city of Olympia because their cross-control connection program was supposed to be very good. That doesn't mean she hasn't looked it up. She hasn't given it to me yet.
Okay. Yeah, so I shot over, the highlights that I kind of saw there. A couple different avenues that could be explored for bringing in extra revenue for the water department on top of that. And then, Matt and I both have an idea of, or I guess kind of share an idea of what our water quality monitoring would look like, aside from the Department of Health regulated system. So, we've kind of been in talks about that, and are all agree that it would be really beneficial to bring that extra person on.
Hello.
I don't know who's chairing. Angie, are you calling on Rich?
Rich, go ahead.
So, Ricky, when you and Matt think about this position, are you guys pretty comfortable that flushing would be one of their primary duties? If I've learned anything diving into this with the mayor's blessing, it's that more chlorine in the lines makes a lot of people's problems go away, and the only way to do that is through flushing for the most part.
Yeah, so today's a really good example of that. We have the crew chief and one maintenance guy out on vacation, and so we're stuck with 2 people flushing, our 2 plant operators, and that leaves me to do this installation for the water fountain at Chinook Park by myself. So Sean P with the street department was gracious enough to lend me summer help to give me a hand with all this stuff. So that alone right there, I guess would be a really good example of, if that one person was flushing, then we would have one more maintenance too, open to do other work within the city that is on their agenda. So
I think Richard had his hand up first.
Excuse me. So I very much appreciate that an additional employee would help the situation a lot. Realistically, although you have crunches like today, is there enough work to keep that additional employee fully busy, throughout the year?
Yeah, definitely. And then even if there is small windows where, they're finding themselves not so busy, we could, and right now we don't because of our staffing. We can include in our cross connection control program that the city does backflow assembly testing. So in my mind, I wanted to make that a job requirement. Just so that, right there, we're saving, I think, at least a few $1,000s in testing our own backflow assemblies. We have 27 assemblies after the dog park goes in town that we have tested annually. So, if they were certified, then we could test all of our customer backflow assemblies that are available to test, I guess. That it could be just a sign up and then it's a monthly bill. And so that would be another avenue of optional revenue, I guess, that we could explore there. And, a little more to put on their plate if they weren't overwhelmed already.
All right, Catherine?
So I have a couple questions and observations. Hasn't the water department been short a position for quite some time?
No, but we merged two positions way back when, and I can't even remember if that was before I started here, Ricky. It's definitely before I was public works director. But
Yeah, I don't know. I started after you, so I think so. They merged two crew chief positions in about 2009, and then they went and just took meter readers up to a maintenance two and made those the same position. So they've been operating, I think, technically two people shy since 2014.
That's what I remembered or thought I remembered. And my next question is, you mentioned something about additional revenue. Is that this testing that you think that perhaps hotels, I presume, that might need somebody to check out their system? Say more about additional revenue. What would that look like? And
So it's a, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Was that the question?
well, what would it look like and how would it be implemented?
So it's been a pretty common practice at a lot of municipalities or water districts that, anyone with a backflow device, if they install it in the city right of way, then we test it annually and then we send them a monthly bill of $10 or, whatever that might look like. It's just tacked onto their utility bill. And then it's, almost just, it's a fee. We test it and then we make repairs. If any repairs are made, then they pay for those materials. And then the labor comes out of that $10 every month or whatever it might be. And so, when we go and do that, then we have authority or jurisdiction over what device goes in. And, if we want to standardize on one thing so that we can have repair parts or anything like that easily accessible, then that's an option as well. So.
And presumably that's for businesses when you say right of way.
Businesses.
It's not going to be typical of a single family residential property.
So if a single family residential property had an irrigation system or sprinkler system installed in their front yard or in their yard at all, then they would be required to install a backflow device. And if they installed it at the city right of way, then we would test it annually or we could test it annually and add them to that bill for it. So
presumably it's not it wouldn't be a requirement. It would just be an option for the
it would,
homeowner.
You could opt in or opt out. And,
And then my last question, I see Richard has his hand up, but my last question is, Regina said that she thought this would be a full-time position in the beginning, but probably not down the road. So that's why I asked about, haven't we been down a body in the department, would this person be able to be cross-trained to do other things if it became necessary?
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
remember, I've suggested bringing on a temporary employee to get through this issue that we have now, assuming that
So
it wouldn't have been a full-time position
the
forever.
issue the issue with that is the issue right now is it requires a certified individual. So you know, in my mind, if we bring them on, open this position to just strictly get this cross connection control program up to date, update it with our new opt-in or opt-out of that membership, or you know what, I guess membership wouldn't be a great word.
Service.
Yeah, the service. Then you know, we could go through there, and then in the future tack on or put more focus towards the water quality, where you know, the city of Longview has a Sentinel program, so they have customers in each or not district, division, and each quarter of a division to submit reports for a water quality sample monthly, and then we'd take those and go, okay, well, the chlorine residual is a little lower in this area, so we might need to go flush. And that would be the job of the CCS.
Well, clearly it seems like we need to do something because we do have issues with the system. But I wouldn't want a position we add to fulfill Murphy's Law, which is work expands to fill the time available for its completion.
Yeah,
Just
no,
putting that out there.
yeah, I don't.
40-hour-a-week job, but if it's only 30 hours a week, that individual needs to have something else to do.
Yeah, I don't think that would be the case at all. Here, you know, there's always someone that needs help or something that needs to be done. Especially in the last few years, as you know, just everything's gotten bigger, and the water system has added, you know, probably close to 700 connections just in the last 2 years. So,
I think Richard had his hand up for,
So my question is a direct segue, even before Catherine voiced that question. Is it possible to write this job description so that if that new employee has a lot of slack time, which you do not anticipate, but I like to think ahead, could that job description be written so that that person could float into like the street department if they're shorthanded, or you know, I think you see the direction I'm going, and I may be starting to micromanage. I don't want to do that. I just thought that having more, having a very liberal job description might facilitate keeping that person as busy as the rest of the city employees.
um,
But
yeah. So, I mean, right now the water department's kind of unique in that, so it's separate, but they work together. So there's distribution maintenance team, and then there's a treatment maintenance team, and they're constantly helping each other out on projects or just day-to-day work to get it all done. So and that's the reason kind of that everyone works so close together. I think there's maybe one day a week where everyone's separate, and then, you know, from there it's just, oh, hey, well, I need a hand with this today, and then I'll help you with that tomorrow.
so in very round numbers, what would this new employee cost the city?
With benefits, I'm guessing Angie 130ish, 130.
yeah, we're
140.
working on that. I know Kristen's been pulling job descriptions and looking at amounts. It would be nice, like we're later in this presentation, Sarah and I are going to present like a proposal for her office. We could do something similar with this position for Ricky, in that if there's revenue coming in, we need to consider that to offset some of that cost. So this is just very preliminary. We're just wanting to bring it up now as we head into the season of our mid-biennial budget modification. And obviously this is the group we wanted to run it by first to kind of vet, get questions, figure out what information you'd like to see from us. So, but we'll get hard numbers, job descriptions, things like that as we move forward.
Thank you.
Yep. Rich, did you have another question? I saw your hand go up at one point.
Just reiterate what Richard and Catherine said. If we do this, let's make that job description as broad as possible so that we don't regret an employee that isn't allowed to do certain things, because that way it can help Ricky and other people in the water department. This is our chance to do the job description correctly so we don't regret it later. But there's no question that we need to get this position funded right away so that we can settle down the community with some of the issues that some of the people are having.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, so what we've actually done in I guess most recent years to make sure that employees can work as broadly as possible is on the last I guess line item for objectives or responsibilities. I'm not sure where it falls. It's other duties as assigned. So, you know, wherever your crew chief tells you you need to help out or be of assistance is where you go. And that's pretty broad with the maintenance twos, especially. I'm kind of unique in that I'm just in public works. I'm not in any certain department. And so I'm kind of the same way. If a crew chief needs me after lunch to fix an issue with a pump station, then I'm there. And then, you know, if I've got work, I've always got work that I'm doing if I'm not immediately tasked with anything. So it's just kind of, you know, just as assigned pretty much.
Yeah, and as we go through that too, it's when we do the job description and talk about what, you know, divisions or departments they're working in, we can accommodate in the budget as well. So what we do is we assign percentages for where people spend their time. This is a public works job, so it'll be in that collective bargaining agreement. So, you know, we can kind of do what we want as far as job description. Of course, Teamsters has to approve it, but if they're splitting some time between water and sewer, we can accommodate that in the budget and charge it accordingly. So again, it's just getting all the facts, figuring out what this job description is going to look like, what the cost will be, and then kind of going from there. All right, are we ready to let Ricky go back to work? I appreciate you popping on the call. You are definitely the expert in this area, and we're all like, we need him here. So thank you.
Thanks, Ricky.
All
Appreciate
right, well,
it.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ricky.
Bye.
See you tomorrow morning, by the way.
All right, so I'm just gonna do high level summary on the July financials. Is the most recent one we had. I was trying to pull the August figures. They usually release them around the 22nd of each month, but they weren't out yet, so that's kind of a bummer. But you've already seen the July financials. We're still trending the same in certain areas. Sales tax is still flat. Hotel motel, at a glance, it looks like we're up 12. If you take in that one-time payment, it's actually 3. Building permits and real estate excise tax are still really low. It's just not as much construction and home sales in the city. One area I've been watching is our street revenue. You might have noticed it's pretty far under target for where it should be. The cause is we've spent all the money on the Point Brown sidewalk project, or the mid-block crossing, I should say, but we haven't been reimbursed through the grant. So that actually hit the bank account in August. So our August numbers in that street fund should look way better. You might have also noticed the golf course fund balance is back in the positive after we did the budget amendment. So we needed to get some money moved in there to cover the startup costs of having Troon step in and run that for us. The airport, might notice that's still negative. It's just, again, grant related. We have to spend the money before we can get reimbursed. So that hopefully will catch itself up as well. We do have some good news. Our financial and federal single audit is complete, and we'll be exiting with the auditors on August 31st. I think you all saw that email. As of today, there's no significant audit issues, so that's really good. They did a really big deep dive into our airport grant. It was quite large, so that was the grant that they selected. And so far, so good. We haven't had any recommendations on that, so that's good. The other thing we've been working on, and I say we, but I actually mean Shantae, has been procuring some budget system. So I'll let her kind of talk briefly about what she's been looking at. Oh, go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, I just, before you change topics, I had a couple of questions. This is July out. I think you said that the budget amendment would be logged after June, but in July.
Yep,
Is-
it's in there.
So this is in there.
Yep.
So we now have an ending balance of 4.2 million.
Yep, that's just where we're at. The actual budgeted ending fund balance. It'll be because all of our property taxes just came in, but the actual budgeted general fund balance is 2.574.
Okay, so this is just a one-off because of the property taxes?
Yep, this time of year, it's really high, and that's what it does. It kind of ebbs and flows based on when all of our taxes come in. But yeah, we just got through our heavy months of the property tax collections, and it'll start that downward trend again, and then the second installment of property tax, it'll go back up. So the budgeted fund balance is still above the 2.5 million target, by about 74,000.
I just want to lay it on the table again. I think we should look at, if possible, if we have this kind of additional funding available, lay on the table to pay off some of those long-term obligation GO bonds that are getting close enough that they look like we might be able to pay them off and get them off the books in case you all decide you want to try to do another bond down the road. So
Yeah.
I just want to lay it on the table.
Yes, there's two reasons that we shouldn't do that. The first one is we can't pay off those bonds early. They're only callable every 10 years, and that's when we do the refinancings on those when we can. The second reason is if we spend all this money by the end of our budget cycle, we'll be way under where we should be fund balance wise. So even though like we might be at 4 million in July, by September, October, we're going to be low again because that property tax money hasn't come through. So the budget is, like I said, it kind of ebbs and flows. But at the end of the day, if we go in and spend all that money on things that aren't budgeted, at the end of the biennium, we're not going to have enough fund balance and we're going to be overspent. So
Well, we've traditionally under forecasted and over collected on revenues. So I remember when the goal of the council was to pay off debt, and that'd be nice to continue to do. I have a couple other questions. You answered the one about the golf course. With 105, the hotel motel, are all the LTAC funds now spent?
they have been moved over into convention center and expensed. Yes.
Okay,
The only ones that haven't been fully expended are the city's own internal transfers. We just do those incrementally month by month. But all of the external LTAC requests that we receive applications for have been paid out.
okay, so Hog Wild's done, and Sand and Sawdust, and AAOS, and all of those. So what we see is what we're gonna kind of be floating with, except for revenue coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my last question, on the enterprise funds, water, sewer, and storm drain.
Yeah.
I notice under miscellaneous revenues that there's a big percentage over what we projected. And I looked on the revenue, the long budget or the long report, but I couldn't see specifically. Can you remind me what is in that? For example, 434 the water, we projected 11,000 and we're at 38,000 now, 351% over projection. What are they? It's not fees, right?
Let me look real quick. So you're in water.
Water is one, but sewer is 472 over projection, and storm drain is 582% over projection.
Oh, miscellaneous revenue, that's our investment
Yes.
interest. So that's just based on what the LGIP interest rate is where we hold all of our money. So remember when we budgeted, the interest rates were super low. They've been ticking back up. So that miscellaneous revenue is higher because of those interest rates increasing.
Okay, that's the only thing that goes into that?
Yeah, there might be some other little stuff, but just at a glance, the water one, it's all investment interest and it's over by about 28,000. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Rich.
So as I'm going through everything, you said it. You're totally comfortable that our revenues are on target, right? It just seemed for July, it just seems that our percent is low for where maybe we should be. You're not seeing any abnormalities with the big picture of revenue.
No, as just in speaking in the general fund, the target for July was 29%-ish and we're at 32.5. So yeah, everything's trending. There's a couple funds that the revenue's down a little, but the expenses are down by just as much or more. So that's not an issue. So it's just the street fund caught my attention because it's like 3+% below. So I was like, what's going on with that? But it's just the grant for getting that crosswalk project done. So
as we're making adjustments potentially for a cross collateral or a cross connection specialist, other little housekeeping, we got $110,000 sitting there in projected revenue for alcohol sales that's actually at zero. Are we going to clean up things like that too, or do we just let it ride?
yeah, we'll look at all that as we come up to that mid-biennium budget modification. The alcohol was clearly, we did the budget when we were still in the business and now we're out of the business, which is great. So yeah, there's little things like that we need to clean up in there.
Are we getting any kind of an override from the alcohol sales though?
I'm not sure. I think I wouldn't know. You'd have to ask George how that all works.
I wouldn't think I'd be asking George.
Well, I'm not.
No, well, actually, the revenue's not there, but the expense is not there also. So
right. Are when we bring in a bartender, do we get any kind of a piece of that bar? Do we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a percentage. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but when we did the contract with who took over the bar, there is a percentage that we get back. So we are probably close to break even, if not a little bit ahead, just because we don't have to do the outlay of the liquor, and we don't have to also pay for the bartenders. I mean, that's on them.
Oh, okay. So if we just hire a bartender to come in and do it, we're completely out of the bar business. But when they total things up and they sold $10,000 worth of drinks, are we getting a piece of that just goes 100% to our bottom line, which would be in place of this 110 grand estimate? In other words,
but you don't. What you're not counting in there is that there's the offset to get that 110. There's an expense that you had to pay. You had to buy the liquor. You had to pay for the wages
in the past, correct?
Right. So that's
now we would have no expense now, but we're not showing the income either.
Well, we will be showing the income because that is part of the whatever we get back from the vendor that is doing the liquor sales.
Okay, so that, Angie, that's going in a different section than where this 110 was posted then.
Yeah, I would have to talk to George. He's the expert on his events over there.
Okay,
I'm assuming we'll dig into exactly where that number is going, but I'm assuming it's going into catering.
okay. Catering revenue,
Yeah.
okay,
But we'll make sure of whatever George is coding it. But yes, so that's not, that 110 wasn't pure 110 profit. That was just revenue, and then you have to take all the liquor that goes along with it, the
Sure.
labor goes there. So I'm assuming if we actually look at it, we're probably ahead
okay,
from what we were doing it, what we were doing in the past.
gotcha.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so like I was starting to say, we are looking at procuring a new budget system. Shantae's been kind of perusing other cities' websites and contacting them. One of the big things that we're trying to make sure is that any budget system that we procure will integrate with our accounting system. Those have to play well in order for us to function here. So that's been kind of the challenge, is trying to find out what other cities use Springbrook and then what other budget modules they're using. But we have, I think it was Catherine, I think, that was talking about Redmond.
Yes.
Shante, do you want to talk about what you found with that one?
Yeah, so I was able to reach out to our account manager. Her name's B with Springbrook, who's our current software. And she gave me 3 cities that had our the same style of Springbrook that we have right now. And she said, she gave me 3 cities, which was Port Townsend, Auburn, and Redmond. So we are in a version of Springbrook, an older version. Those 3 cities were also in the older version who are planning on moving to the cloud really soon. So Port Townsend, they currently use what Springbrook offers, and they have the older version. We're just trying to see if they can produce the same reports that we currently have for our budget. So she was going to be getting back with me on that. Auburn, they have Eden software, which they said was a little bit outdated, but they are going to be upgrading to the cloud version of Springbrook, which have advanced budgeting software. And then the city of Redmond was actually one of them, Catherine, that have the same software that we have right now, the older version. They're also moving to the cloud. They use Microsoft Dynamics and ERP software, which when I looked into that, it seemed a little bit outdated too. Preference would be to switch over to the cloud software with Springbrook, because everything is integrated and it produces the same reports, if not better than obviously what we have now. So I am waiting to hear back from B at Springbrook to see if they can produce the reports to integrate with Springbrook and our software in the meantime. So we're kind of waiting. I've looked at some other cities' software, and they don't publish a lot of what the software is that they use, but I'm digging. I'm trying to find something that will play nicely with our current software. So that's where we're at. We're waiting to hear back from our accounts manager.
Catherine?
So Shantae, or Angie, what is the difference, if any, of the cost of having a cloud-based system, this Springbrook system, versus what we have now, which I presume is not dynamic and not, because it's not cloud-based.
Right.
We store everything.
So I haven't looked into what a quote would be to switch over to the cloud, because it is a 3 to 6 month turnaround after training and installations. So we don't really have 6 months to kind of play it. It'll change all of our software. So everything that we use for utility billing, not payroll, but business licensing, I think it would be a huge improvement, but in order for us to get the new budget out, we need something that will play nicely with the software that we have right now, the older version.
Yeah,
So-
if we can get this Springbrook, like she said, we've been in touch with Springbrook, and if we can get that up and going, basically when we do switch to the cloud, which will happen at some point in time, everything's already there. It's just,
It'll just
once you
transition.
move to the cloud, it just enhances all the features. So when we were talking to them, yes, it would be amazing to be in the cloud, but that was at the time where we were still like 3-4 months behind on financials. And I'm like, we're getting into this mid-biennial budget modification season if we push it out that late in the year. So we could, if they can accommodate what we need them to accommodate in the Springbrook system that we're using now, we could easily just move to the cloud once we get all that done. But that's what we're trying to figure out, because if you go on other cities' website and you look at their budget, most of them are literally like a printout of their accounting system. There's no narratives, there's no graphs, there's no anything. And I'm like, that's not what I want. So we sent Springbrook our budget and said, we want it to look like this or better than this. Can you accommodate? And that's kind of what we're waiting to get back. So.
That's why I was so impressed with Redmond, because it has, what would be, seems like a very robust system. So it's promising that they use Springbrook.
Mhm.
So just curious about the difference. And I have to think that personnel costs could be much lower if you're creating something out of a system, be it in the cloud or be it server based.
Yeah.
That's already there, instead of having somebody like David have to redo this financial summaries every month out of what's now not Access, but used to be.
And that's once we talk to Springbrook, if they can accommodate what we do, we'll start talking pricing. Right now, we don't pay anything, to be honest. So whatever we buy is going to be an increased cost, because we're using Excel and the old Access database. We don't have a budget software or a monthly reporting software. We take the data that's in Springbrook and we hand enter it right now.
Right.
So, yeah. But I think I mean, Shante.
we do pay Springbrook for the financial software.
Mm-hmm.
I see the bills for that.
Yeah, that's our accounting system.
Yeah,
But when we send you that executive summary report, the 20-some page thing that that one, that's all hand keyed right now.
right. I know. It's like crazy.
And the budget is as well. I hand key that into Access. Well, I used to. I'm not doing that anymore, but that was the reality. I was hand keying all those numbers that you see are hand keyed into Access.
Just think of the time you would save.
Exactly.
The efficiency.
Yeah.
It's just, so we're working on it. We'll, this is the group we like to present these things. If we find a great one, we might ask you guys to check out a demo with us. I don't know. We are working on it. It's getting to be the time where we really need to get focused and get that done, because, the next budget's going to be upon us before we even think about it. So
It seems like a fairly good time now, because we're even though we're almost 4 months out of mid budget, at least that makes 16 months out of having to pass the next one.
Yep, for sure. Rich.
So obviously I deal with this type of thing at work all the time. Is some of my motivations are lack of support. If that's not our main motivation, then it would always be efficiency. But to have efficiency, the cost of the new program is less than hiring that person to enter all the information.
For sure.
Is your goal strictly about efficiency, or is it because they're warning that they're going to stop supporting our current platforms?
It's about efficiency. It's about, we can hand enter this stuff forever and not have, we do it right now. So we're not asking for a new person to hand key stuff in, but it's old. I would like to get a system that's more user friendly, that's looks better when we post it on the website, or it's just, we haven't done anything with it in so long. There's, you know, we can use Excel forever if we want to. We just don't want to do that. We want to make it look better. We want it more efficient. And we want it more, like I said, user friendly for us and for the citizens and for the council. So there's a bunch of benefits to doing it this way.
So when
More
you
public
think about
facing.
your office and your personnel,
Mhm.
no disrespect to anybody in there right this moment, things change in the future. If you said, hey, it's going to cost us blank dollars a month for this, and I'm going to be able to show you how I need a half-time person instead of a full-time person, or I'm not going to hire this person after, rehire this position after this person retires. Do you see anything in there to sell city council on why we should go to the latest and greatest from a financial standpoint, since you're not talking about support being the problem? Because just to have the latest and greatest is neat, but we're about how can we be more efficient? So how would you pose that to us?
That I've redone every process since I've started in this finance department, because everything's been old and archaic, and we continue to do that. It doesn't mean I'm going to need less staff, because we're so busy right now dealing with the growth in the city, you know, the 50 public records requests we've gotten in the past week. So there's no lack of work in this office, and I don't foresee us procuring a budget module for me to be like, well, Shantae, now you're 50% time. There's other work to do. It's just making this piece of it more efficient for us.
And Rich, I would also put in there that if you go to some other cities that have a more robust budgeting program, our ability to pull reports and do in-depth follow-up is greatly improved. One of the big things that we're working on within the finance department that a budgeting program would help us is tracking on lost revenue. And like, we're spending a lot of time that we're working on people that do not have business license in Ocean Shores. And a lot of the stuff, if we can get it so multiple departments can be working on that same thing, that I think that from a revenue point of view, that we could dramatically improve where we are. That we are very adequate. And so if I want a detailed report on, say, the convention center, just like what we talked about of liquor, right now that Angie's team has to actually take a Excel spreadsheet, start processing all the different bills, instead of just pushing a button and pull a report that gives me a nice graph of what I'm looking at, break it down by the different departments. Right now that they're having to hand calculate, you know, and I love Excel too, but I also realize that if I push one button, this is a report that's on my desk the next day. And I'm assuming your business is very similar when you're looking at your reports, that they're not handing you an Excel spreadsheet to look at. It's been generated because of all the invoices start coming in, and they're all coded correctly.
Correct.
So from an efficiency point of view and an oversight point of view, huge improvement from where we are right now, where we would be right now. But as Shantae said, that there's a lot of work to go before we'd even commit or even make a recommendation of whatever we're doing, because the latest and greatest is not the most important thing, but something that works and gives council confidence in those numbers is what we're looking for.
Thanks.
And Angie, I'm happy if you want to put together a committee you mentioned. I'm happy to help out in any way I can.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, we are always soliciting recommendations. So if you see stuff out there, we're doing the same thing. We're just going to city websites and clicking on things, and like, this one looks nice, this one's not so great. So yeah, if you want to try to do some of that and pass along what you see and what you think looks good, that'd be great.
Just, anytime you want some help, just send me a note.
I appreciate that.
Sarah has my number.
We know where to find you.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Okay, let's go on to, speaking of Sarah. We actually have a little slideshow that we kind of used from the fire department slideshow.
To unmute myself. Normally that doesn't happen. So as you know, at least Councilmember Hartman and Councilmember Sprigg, in 2021 and 2022, I came to the city council requesting a temporary records tech for the city clerk's office. And prior to that, it was just Sandy and I, and amongst all of the administrative duties that have gotten bigger with the growth of the city and the complexity of requirements sent down by the governor's office, the attorney general's office, it just has become too much. And I continue to ask for a temporary employee. And as you know, we're onboarding FreeDoc, which is a overall records management system that multiple different municipalities use. And with that becomes digitizing all of our documents. And since I was allotted that temporary employee for 2023, in 2022, she has primarily worked on digitizing all of our backlog. So all of finance has been digitized, all of HR has been digitized. And then she started working on the permit department. So if you've been in the permit department, which I'm sure you all have, you see 1,000 rows of filing cabinets. That's the only documents that we have for those property files. So if that building, something happens to it, we have no way to go recreate the wheel. We're going to be left solely on what the county has. So it was very important for the city, and especially for Roy, who brought in the new online permitting system, to get all of that digitized as well. For a more appropriate request, it is my request that we just make this position permanent. The amount of workload that myself or Sandy has, or whomever comes after us, to do an effective and efficient records management, along with digitizing all of the city's current records and keeping those in compliance with retention schedules and destroy the schedules and all of that, it just simply will not be efficient ever if we don't just make a person permanent. So we did a little like what my job is, what Sandy's job is, what the temporary current job is. And then there's also the hope that somebody will be able to learn a bit about Sandy's, a bit about mine, just like I know a bit about Sandy's and a bit about the records technician, and that we would all be able to help one another. At this time, we have no one, aside from me bringing our current records tech to learn to do city council meetings or board meetings. So since 2019, I haven't missed a council meeting, because if I did, what would we do? And so it was very important for the mayor that I get somebody on board with that. And so I have done that with the records technician, who has become quite savvy at it. And it's just preparing for the future, all of the different things that could happen to our city, to personnel, anybody, and just making that more efficient. So my base request is making the temporary a permanent going forward.
Sarah?
Am I supposed, oh, Rich?
Elephant in the room, how much is this? Does this have a lot to do with the fact that we have a less than a handful of citizens doing massive public records requests, and it's stifling down your office?
Nope.
Okay.
No, this was, and Angie and the mayor and even Scott can attest, I started talking about this maybe February after, like, I really don't want to do a temporary again or go to council again to get a temporary. It truly is based on the growth and based on the pride and transparency that this department believes in, and getting all of that adequately up to date, mirroring different cities. Like, I think it was also Redmond too, that Councilmember Sprigg brought up, because they're using the free doc system. Like, we need to be better, and we're constantly getting better, but we won't continue to be better if we just play this temporary kind of employment game.
Well, and Rich, not to cut Richard off, but I think that Sarah's a little bit incorrect, that there's a new expectation from the citizens, whether it be a small group or large group, of what we need to produce. You talk to any city on public records, that dramatically things are changing. We right now, our team is overwhelmed with using a temporary employee. And so that I don't see a place of what the expectation of the clerk's office and what they need to do, that temporary person is not going to be a position that we need. And it is added a lot more need from a current point of view because of the public records requests that we have received. How many have we received, and aren't we already at what we did last year, Sarah?
So currently today, as of today's date, we're at 242. The highest year we ever had was 2021, or excuse me, 342. We're at 342 public records to date. The highest year we ever had was 350. This month alone, we've received 80, which I think everybody knows that. And that, I guess, is where the mayor is completely right. There's I don't want to say instability, but there's like this, you never know how many you're gonna get. Like, I can't depend on Sandy to be able to do all of these extra things, because I never know where what's going to be on my plate. It's all calendared, it's all on my calendar. But we used to do this, Sandy and I, on the weekends. So what we're having this, and that didn't include digitizing, I just want to say that, but doing the records management, destroying the things that we were supposed to be destroying, sending stuff to the state auditor's office that we were supposed to send there, all of that was being done on Saturdays and Sundays by Sandy and I, way prior to public records being a lot. So
Richard?
So my question, just to put things in perspective, an average employee is expected to work, let's say, 40 hours a week. Just to put things in perspective, how many hours would you guesstimate that you and Sandy each work a week? My guess is a lot more than 40.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I normally have my 40 hours in by Thursday morning.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. And is that true of Sandy?
Absolutely. Normally I'm getting emails from her at 5 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock at night. So, but we're salary. So
and my point is that you are already doing unpaid the work that this full-time employee, moving the part-time to full-time employee, would be doing.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound generic and say it's not about the money or the time or anything like that. It is about that we actually believe, and we get calls all the time, where Ocean Shores is doing bigger and better things than the rest of Grays Harbor municipalities, and finance does as well. It's continuing
again,
that. It's making us better. It's making us more efficient. It's putting faith in government. That's what we care about, and that's what we believe. Having another permanent employee will help.
And that's my point, is that I fully appreciate that you and Sandy are cheerfully doing the job that you're doing, but it may not be as fair of the city to ask you to do as much as you're doing. And I'm starting to go down a rabbit hole I don't want to go down, but as I hear what you're doing and what you're trying to do, I want to say I'm in favor.
I think I saw Catherine. want some, say something.
So, give us some context here now. This temporary assistant, what's her name? I've met her, right? She's the one who
Yeah.
comes with you to council now?
Yeah, Nicole,
Nicole, okay.
Yeah.
Does she work right now full-time?
she does.
Okay, is she hourly?
She's salary.
She's
She's
salary.
exempt, yeah.
Okay, so what, you and Sandy are exempt as well?
Yep, salary.
So the only thing you're asking for Nicole is to move her from a temporary salaried position to I don't want to say permanent, because permanent is not the right word, but to an established position within the organizational structure.
Correct. However, we were allotted temporary funds. In order to keep her on in
Right.
2024, you would have to, or the council would have to approve additional funds in the budget.
Okay, so are the funds running out right now?
No, I think, do you want to throw up the cost? I actually ran some numbers. So we're not even gonna ask for any extra budget because we can accommodate keeping her by some of the other vacancies. So we did a similar thing that, we borrowed this from the fire department because they did a really good job when we hired the last group that they asked for. But basically we've had, our full-time IT tech position was budgeted for all of 2023. It was filled for 2 months. That person is no longer here. We're hoping to fill it again by October 1st. So there's some budget remaining for that position of about 56,000. Part-time IT tech, we actually didn't know Lee would be leaving so early. So he was actually budgeted for both 23 and 24. So there's 33,000 in budget remaining for that. We have a permit tech in the permit department budgeted in 2023 that wasn't filled. So there's some budget remaining for that. So at the end of the day, these 3 positions that we have budget remaining for are all in the general fund, which is where Nicole is currently funded from as well. So if we take into account all the budget remaining, the budget needed for her, which this all includes benefits. I just want to throw that out there. She's not going to be making $110,000 a year. This is with benefits. There's still 42,000 remaining from those other vacancies. So we wanted to come to you saying we need her and there's money to do this. So we're not going to go in asking for a budget amendment. I would update the payroll forecast, obviously, to fix these issues as part of the mid-biennial budget modification. But we're not asking for additional funding to keep that position in 2024. The funding's there. We just have to move it around.
What do we budget?
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say, Catherine, thank you for framing better than I framed. Thank you.
And so the salary would be the same. There's no increase in salary,
No,
correct?
that would be correct. Just whatever COLA happens in 2024.
Right. So what you want from us is feedback, which I think that's what we're giving now, but this has to come to council.
Oh, yeah. So the plan would be, we run all this stuff by you first, obviously.
Right.
But we're trying to get in front of it because in October, we do start that mid-biennial budget modification. And this is going to be one of the city requests that we bring forward. So we just wanted to get out in front of it. It's definitely going to come to council a number of times. You're going to have to approve it through the payroll forecast updates, all of that. So we're not trying to not be transparent or say we're not bringing this to council. We have her funded through the end of this year anyway, but we're just
At what level? What number do you have in there for 23?
It's like
110,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's similar to that. Back out the COLA and stuff that we accommodate for.
Right.
So
So
not getting a pay raise or anything. It's just, like I said, we already have her in the budget.
it's the same amount. It's just taking off that temporary. So that what the then council needs to grapple with in 2024 is continued funding them, because that position would go away. And Sarah, you mentioned you guys are doing cross training, and
Yeah.
I've seen Nicole, and I'll just bring up that with this change that we need to be considering regarding online via Zoom public comment. One of the things I've been thinking about is who handles the waiting room and who handles what's going on at the council meeting itself. And that's a possibility at some point that we may need 2 people at council anyway. Would you think that would be the case, Sarah? One to handle, depending on how much public comment we get?
I think dependent and how many people are involved, but I mean, I don't know if the council knows this, but I run the camera also.
Right.
So if, you know, even having Nicole there on those days I'm training her, I'm secretly just happy she's there because she'll run the camera while I do all of the other stuff. So there's
We're
definitely,
not talking about Scott's camera, are you?
no, I'm talking about the camera that records our meetings, which is the OWL.
For the, oh, okay, for the AV, okay.
Yeah, it doesn't.
And I don't want to butt in here, but I kind of have to just because it's 2:00 and I know you've got planning commission. Is there someone that's filling in for you on
Yeah,
that? Or
Nicole is, but we can't start that
Okay.
Zoom until this one's finished. So
okay, all right. Just want to make sure you're not getting caught off guard here.
Okay, so I'll stop asking questions. Although I do have a few more.
All right, Sarah, do you need to, so we need to close this out? Are you good?
I told them that they'd be a little late. Go ahead.
Okay,
Yep.
well, I'll make it easy. I don't think Scott has an administrator report. He already covered it with Ricky. So we'll jump to the mayor for concluding comments.
Well, first of all, Catherine, did you have some more questions? I don't want to.
No, it's all right. I'm comfortable. You know, we'll have continued conversations about this at council.
For sure.
I
Okay.
did want to ask about the public records request thing, but that can happen later.
You
Let me
can-
go ahead and ask it.
Yeah, it's,
Well, I just, the software you mentioned on public records requests, that's going to expedite service of that function. Is that correct?
so when we originally went with FreeDoc, it was to just do the record management of the things that we have and how they go back and forth between the government. So like if something needed signature, B&O, or not B&O, excuse me, P&O statements, all of that stuff so that it was intertwined. But because of all the stuff that's happened, Sandy actually just sent them an email Thursday night. And so they are already doing that with another city. And so they're looking at just mirroring that city's and making it a function on ours, because that's what makes it so difficult with FilePro is that it's not meant for public records. It's not meant to house. So you heard in previous council meetings where people had said things about like, well, I go on there and all the emails that I asked for were not on, you know, as a public
Right.
record. Well, the reason for that is because if you go in and put John Martin's name, everything that has John Martin's name comes up. So you
Right.
wouldn't just get those emails, you'd get thousands and thousands and thousands. So it's the search capability, especially if you're looking for something simplistic. So that's what we are going with FreeDoc on it. It will help because it's meant for that, where FilePro is not. It's kind of what they deal with Springbrook, and they've just kind of, or Access, they've just made it work over the years, trying, but it's not really meant for all of that now.
Right, I know that Snohomish County has a system where people who are interested in public records requests can search their PRR database and say, have there been any public records requests regarding John Martin's emails, and it pulls up. So then our public records clerk doesn't have to do it over and over and over again.
Right.
And the mayor doesn't have to post everything so that everybody can read it. But in my last, I promise this will be my last question. What is the nature? Can you categorize the nature of these public records requests we're getting?
Well, prior to these last 50, it was almost 110% John's emails.
Okay,
So he did that,
publishing those will resolve that.
he did that posting as a courtesy to this department.
Yes.
And because we'll give you everything, we just need
Yeah,
to use Microsoft 365. And if you go to anything like WAPRO or anything like that, it is the worst system in the world to try and find emails in Outlook, but it's what everybody's using. And
Yeah.
so it just takes a lot of time. And that is because we had one who we all respect and adore, one gentleman that did tons and tons and tons of public records requests in the past. And since Sandy and I took over all this, I don't ever get a records request for him, ever.
right.
Because we post all the documents and stuff like that, but it's 99.9% of the time emails. They want somebody's emails.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Okay,
I have just one very quick question, almost related. Is the online permitting software, is that operational now? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Well, I would say it's,
the 21st century, yay.
well, but there's only portions of it. I mean, so I don't want anyone to assume that permitting is 100% online. There's still got to be things that people actually have to come to the office in order to get the permits done with it, but we are working on that, and that's one of the things that Roy and Nettie and Marshall are working on. And we are actually have next month Lean that we are they are working with us on the process to further integrate that into our system.
Great. So you'll
Thank you,
report
John.
that
That's what
on
I thought
council
was
and
going
John's
on.
report?
Kind of online, but not totally online. So thanks.
Catherine, I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the lean process, you'll do a mayor's report update to council on that pretty soon? That would be a good thing for everybody else to learn.
Yes, we will, although it's the middle of the month of next month, right?
Yeah. September, like I can't remember, 9, 10, 11, something like that, or 10, 11, 12, one of those 3 days.
Well, it doesn't have to be next meeting, but it'd be nice
Right.
to get an update on that.
Oh,
'cause it-
yeah,
it's
certainly.
a Good.
Yes, certainly that we will.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we ready for my mayor's report? Okay. First of all, that one of the things that we've been committed to, and this finance committee has been of great assistance of helping us streamline the financial piece of it. I think that in any business or any city, the most important thing is making sure that the financial information is out there and available. So that's where I've charged Angie and her team to look at a software program that will make us more efficient and more, I guess, transparent. I mean, sometimes I think we use those words too often, but if there's a report that especially the council is looking at, would like to see on a monthly basis, it'll make it easier for us to produce those reports. We are working hard on the licensing part. One of the things that we are maybe becoming before council is with an outside company that will help us track overnight rentals, and especially we're looking at overnight rentals that are not supposed to be overnight rentals, and working on how efficient that is, and also looking at the possibility of having council change what we charge people for having an overnight rentals from a permit fee to offset whatever program cost would be. We are doing better than we were as far as tracking down businesses that are doing businesses without a license, although that we are still need more resources in order to track them, because we're now kind of we've done the easy stuff, which is comparing B&O reports to the state reports. What our next step needs to be is actually tracking tracking down, such as real estate agents that are doing business in Ocean Shores and not being licensed in Ocean Shores. So that's our next big one. And then the next one after that is, of course, the overnight rentals that we're going after. So those are the things that we're working on and trying to become more efficient with that. The next thing that I think should be the financial committee's responsibility, although I'm thinking that there's one member that we shouldn't have on it, but that is the salary commission review. That we committed as a council to have that and to do it in September. Is that right, Angie? So with that is that that we'll pull together the data. There'll be a group of the council that will do the review on exempt employees and where we are to do that. So my belief is it should be the financial committee, but I don't know. I don't believe that it should be a person that is actually running for election in order to do that. So I'm hoping that Rich and Catherine, that you're available to be part of that, and then to bring forward at the next council meeting to find another volunteer that can be part of the committee. And so, Angie, do you want to kind of share kind of what your vision?
No, you hit it right on the head. It's per the policy, we have to have the mayor appoint a committee that meets the first week of September. So we're looking at September 6th as the date to do that. So we'll need a committee of 3 council members. And it's basically just like he said, to figure out what we're going to do with most likely cost of living adjustments for the administrative employees for 2024. All the other employees fall under the collective bargaining agreement, so it's the administrative employees.
Does that make sense of the direction that we're going? Council?
Yep. Yes, it does to me.
Okay. Richard gave me a thumbs up and Rich is just smiling.
Like a Cheshire cat.
Yeah, smiling and rocking in his chair.
Exciting
Okay,
information to process.
Okay, all right. So anyway, so I'll leave it there, but that's where kind of the direction that that we're going, because that was what that we agreed that we were going to be going forward, and I just need to have council members to be part of that committee to weigh in with it. So unless someone has something else, that's all I've got.
All right, thank you all.
Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.